All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of TalkFlow. This is episode 15, I believe. And again, it's another guest episode. Today, we got Hannah Springett with us today. So, yeah, we're excited for this one. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Hannah is the owner of HanSpringett Ltd, which is an agency that builds websites and branding, I believe. So, yeah, we're just going to talk a little bit about Hannah's story. Yeah. Cool. So just to start things off, Han, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yeah, I'll take it from there. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a random journey. I mean, I sound like a moron every time I have to tell someone that I'm a founder or like, or a CEO of my own company. Like, it does cringe me out every time. I think it's funny that we mentioned that it's HanSpringett Limited. Again, hate the name. Awful. So we're going to let everyone in on this, like the best known secret that we are changing over to an agency name on February 17th. We're going to be calling it HLabs just because it's gone from me to 36 people in 2 years, which has been a bit of a crazy journey. So, thanks for the intro and inviting me on here today. We've made the agency to focus on interactive storytelling. So that involves any web content more from an editorial side, where if you've got a story to tell, we want to help make that more engaging and improve your dwell times, your click-through rates and performance across the website. So we focus on no-code tools, which comes from my experience working with Ceros and having partnerships with a couple of other platforms. But what's really exciting and how I met both of you was our new transition into working on Webflow as well, which is exciting for the whole company. But yeah, it's looking at interactive content, animated content, and just wowing a user base to pick up your phone and go, oh, this is cool, I want to share this with my friends. So the idea behind our agency is to create great web experiences, but with minute timelines. So I know that you two have seen my crazy timelines that we try and so whether it be a couple of weeks rather than a couple of months, that's what our USP is trying to be, is getting really cool content, but in a much shorter time frame. So that's an intro on what we're trying to do, at least. Cool. So looking forward to your questions, really.
Yeah, cool. I think what we normally like to do with all the guests is take them back to where it all started, like right after uni, or just to get the whole experience. So if you can take all yourself back to when you were 22?
It's making me feel old. I'm really old. So I graduated from Kingston Uni in 2010, studied graphic design. Kingston Uni was a great university for focusing on the idea first, concepts, advertising, making sure something had a real point to it. Kingston won't mind me saying that they don't really teach you the skills. You have to kind of learn it yourself. Going back to like how I started with publishing, like I was creative director of the student magazine and I learned Flash. Can you remember that? Oh God. You asked me to go back. So yeah, made my first website on Flash, and then I kind of at my end of year show kind of tailored that kind of editorial digital magazines with Flash, and then got a job at an agency doing digital magazines. And as part of that agency, which is now called Born, we went through a couple of iterations where Ceros was in like the top floor of the building. They had a couple of people and the CEO owned both companies, which was a real part of my first 5 years. So working agency side, my first account was Argos, which sounds very unglamorous. But we had to do their digital magazines on iPad. So I think like my first project when I was a junior is that they said, we need to do an interactive magazine on iPad. And it's, you have to touch everything. And it was the first time that iPads had been around for that kind of editorial. So we looked at plugins like Mag Plus and other plugins for InDesign that made like interactive PDFs and things like that. And then Ceros kind of started to realize that they needed a web-based platform to tell these stories. So they took the publishing clients that they had and tried to repurpose them on a HTML platform. So I moved, Ceros offered me a job in New York. I think that was 2015, 16, something like that. But I moved to New York when Ceros was just a startup. So I was part of the original 15, I think. So we moved into this crazy office. We had tennis.com like in the corner. We had another company, and it was very startup. It was, standing with 10 people, kind of talking through what we were doing. And I was the first designer on the team there. And so seeing kind of Ceros go from that very small team to the team it is now, which is like over 300 people globally, it was kind of a real experience. And again, as a person like me that liked to party, being in New York for 8 months was kind of dangerous, but I left and spoke to loads of clients, and so went traveling for a bit. Came back to the UK, and Ceros didn't have a UK team at that point. So actually had to apply for a job, which was quite scary. So went agency side for nearly 2 years, and that was working at MSL, which is a part of Publicis. So they've got a office on Baker Street, and it was the first time that I'd kind of worked with a design team in that agency environment that had we had 3 creative directors. We're working with them again now actually, which is really, really cool. But MSL, it was funny. They hired me to rally the team. And there'd been, quite a kind of lot of designers that had left, like that had trained as graduates and wanted their next step. So I was the first new hire of about 15 people. And like I got in, and apparently I swore 5 times in the interview, and like they were like, "What is this?"
I'm not surprised, to be honest.
It's a bit mad. But I took the job, and we spent 2 years kind of working on that kind of team spirit and helping designers enjoy the social side of it, enjoy their creativity. So we set up something called Creative Thursdays, where I ran a 15-minute session where it all started from like life drawing or drawing each other's portraits in the office. It's mad. It was this company-wide thing that it wasn't just the designers, that we started bringing in the devs and the project managers, and even the CEO ended up like making paper planes one Thursday for us. But then I went back to Ceros. They got a UK team. And so I worked with an account manager. There was just 2 of us starting that. So we kind of looked after the EMEA and APAC clients. So as a creative strategist, it was my kind of job role to go into enterprise businesses, talk to them about how they could use no code, how they could use the Ceros platform to enhance their web positioning. Then we also kind of had a team in Poland and a team in UK of creative designers. So kind of learned how to work with designers on a tool. And then, just before lockdown, decided that really wanted to focus on the creative rather than the tool itself. So I think starting HanSpringett Ltd or HLabs is much more exciting now that we're not restrained to just one tool, and focusing on the creative and the initiatives that we can do it's just really, really exciting, like knowing that we can use Ceros clients to push that in certain ways. So Red Bull is a great example of that, but also kind of working with other clients that have come to us for that no code speciality, like economists that are using Vev, and pushing that further with the ReadyMag partnership and WireWax with interactive video, and as I mentioned, using both of your skill sets on Webflow. It's really exciting. So I probably spent way too long on that section. That's how I got to starting the business. But it was a bit crazy doing all of that in lockdown, for the first time. So
that was all this before the first lockdown, right?
Yeah.
All right. So so you started the agency just before lockdown. Okay.
Yeah. So I started on February 17th, and we went into lockdown in March. So I was like at home with my mum, going like, "Oh my god, I've started a business, and I'm not going to be able to take clients out, and I'm not going to." I thought that the typical agency thing I had in my head was that you had to take everyone for lunch and go for drinks. I love doing that, but we had to find other ways of working. So we became a remote first team. And then gradually, some of the clients had more digital marketing budget because they couldn't do in-person events and things like that. So we just found that there was a need for the work. So I just needed to start finding people to help me, really.
All right. And so before, let's say if there was no lockdown, your normal sales pitch would be, you take them out, you connect with them in that sense. How did it change with lockdown? Do you do it all remote? Or
I think we've been really lucky, and it's luck and experience. I think that a lot of the clients that I worked with Ceros on, they needed more help from a creative services standpoint, and they were really happy with using the Ceros platform. So my expertise over the amount of years that I've had at Ceros just meant that we could take that skill set and then just elevate it, focusing on the creative. So we were really lucky to kind of in the first quarter of the first bit of lockdown, Condé Nast got in touch, and I started working as a senior product designer for them 3 days a week. So I had that as a kind of repeat revenue part. I think we haven't done sales in the traditional format. We don't have like a cold calling system. That our business comes from referrals, and again, as a business owner, we're in a really lucky position that that's the case. That a lot of my network have used one of these tools and gone, oh, can you help us on this? And then it might expand to be like, okay, well, they might work with us on Ceros, but now they might use us for social media activation, or looking at taking up some copywriting with us, or getting some illustrations. So I think the bulk of the business has come from some of those core enterprise clients, but then we've extended it through upsell and kind of generating more creative that they go, actually, we want a bit of that. Can we use your services for that? And becoming one of those go-to agencies where we can facilitate a lot more means that it's easy. And I think that I have to thank Ceros. I tell them all the time that we're obviously very lucky to have been put in touch with their enterprise clients, because it's hard as an individual company owner to get into that level. You can't just rock around and be like, oh, we do stuff with Vogue and Red Bull and The Economist. It's all from relationships that have taken 4 years in the making. So it'll be exciting the end of this year. Like when we put HLabs out there, we do want to take things to market and apply to new clients, but we've just been pretty busy dealing with all of the great clients we've known for a while so far.
And I think
sorry, go ahead.
I think it'd be good for the audience to at least explain what is Ceros. We tried in one of our past things, but we have no idea.
That's what I was gonna say.
Because we couldn't even find a demo or anyone using it.
No, it's okay. I can explain that. So I know you guys did another podcast on talking about no-code platforms, pros and cons,
ranking them.
And I think it's a really interesting topic to discuss. It's definitely something we have to think about with new clients. Is that normally it's the technology partner that comes to us with clients to say, do you want to work with Hannah? She knows the platform inside and out. But I think, when we go out and do a sales approach, it will be about consulting on what no-code tool might be the best for you, because they've all got a lot of different budgets, they've got different features, they've got different SEO and accessibility capabilities. So we've just got to bear in mind that with new clients, it will be looking at their checklist and then seeing what to deliver on that. But Ceros is a no-code tool. It's a drag and drop online bit of kit, and it's super simple for marketers, designers to see their designs come to life. So you have like a typical canvas. You can move things around on it like an artboard, like Photoshop or InDesign or Figma. You can also drag in your Photoshop files on that as well. And then taking the layers, you can add interactions and animation, click a button, and you've got a HTML website. So whether you want to use that on its own as a HTML site, or you want to use and I think the best feature that works for our publishing clients is that you can hit a button and it creates an iframe, and that iframe code snippet you can put in anything. So whether you've got a WordPress site, a Sitecore, CMS, or with Condé, they've got a bespoke CMS, so they've got Ceros to be allowed in little fragments, and it's just meant that we can turn out a lot more projects depending on whether it's module based or a whole site. And I think that sometimes web design teams are all about the whole site, and it's a very long end-to-end process. But if you break things down into components and you want an interactive map or an interactive diagram, from a module base, that could take a day or 2 days. Whereas if you were hard coding that into an existing site, you wouldn't need to do that on a CMS because you're probably not going to reuse it. But if it's campaign driven or a short-lived project, then Ceros just allows you to kind of turn out that content a lot quicker.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about during that video where we were ranking Ceros. We were talking. I think Vimalin, you mentioned that the barrier to entry of Ceros is quite high.
Yeah,
so I wanted to ask you about that. What is the barrier to entry?
It's a cost thing. Like their model at the
Okay.
moment is set up for enterprise clients, and I think
see.
that if they've got a lot of licenses spread over a whole global company, it makes total sense, and that's how you can make that margin. Which is why the publishers have got that really good strategy, because we help them sell it to their clients. So they're the kind of middle sort of part of that process, and make a markup on that content. And I think it's scalability, that it's easy to pick up, so marketers can use it, designers can use it, and that's where the entry level is. It's a great tool, but it's pricey compared to something like Webflow, which is cheap in comparison, but you need the expertise to use it. So it's that balancing act that there's some platforms in the middle that I think ReadyMag is pretty much plug and play, whereas Vev is kind of in the middle, but again has some of the key features you're looking for, but also has that enterprise level as well. So I think it's been really nice to look at that breadth of platforms and work out what's right for a client.
Yeah, and before like we started working at HLabs, Hannah Springett Ltd.
We'll just call it HLabs.
Okay, HLabs. Right. I have never heard about Vev, Ceros, ReadyMag, all these other tools. All we knew was Webflow, Wix, WordPress, and these were like the main ones. And I think we were actually genuinely curious about Vev because it was very similar to Webflow, but it had a lot more backend capabilities as well, not just the front end. So we haven't really used it yet, but yeah.
It's really exciting, I think, with what we've done with the Economist, and I know they won't mind us talking about it, but the partnership with Vev is really exciting. So we're pretty much signing this week as an official partner with them, and I think it's got really good capabilities. It's got 3 parts to it. There's a designer part of it, there's a content editor side to it, and then there's a coder side to it. So I think you can use it. So I would love you to, as part of HLabs, to take a look at Vev's capabilities, because it might be that, like with Webflow, we can inject some code, create some customizable like templates. And I think what's really interesting is you can templatize components. So it could be that we code our own tab system or our own accordion type of functionality, and then when the designer gets in it, they can change the colors, change the text, and that kind of thing. So I think that there's a lot of scope to do that coding side of it, which perhaps Ceros doesn't do. But again, it's that little bit trickier to kind of jump into it straight away. It needs a little bit more training, but the responsiveness as well is pretty cool. So I think it's a good in between one. And we've found that our designers that have taken on Vev training have found that it's easier to understand Webflow. And I think with the features they've got coming out, like integrating from Figma, you'll soon be able to drag and drop a Figma file into it so that it can pull in your designs as well. So I think all of them are leveling up the capability. So it's good to
that
stay
puts
on.
a lot of Webflow developers out of job then.
Just
take a Figma file.
Oh, you guys better stick with me, and I'll make sure that you're covered on all of the platforms.
But it's good to know like all these other tools, because then otherwise we just start our version just in Webflow, which I think we should be open to using any tool that's available depending on what the client need is. But another thing I realized, being part of HLabs is the team, like the team that you build. And honestly, to be fair, I didn't really work in many places, like a couple of places, but the amount for the size and how connected all these people are is quite interesting. So I want to learn about how do you build a team and what was like the main thing you look for.
So I think it's a real compliment that you'd say the team is such a big part of it. I think when we had the Christmas party, you guys were all part of it. It's really good fun. And I think we knew that when we started the business that we wanted there to be key values. I mean, we're working on the the HLabs branding at the moment and what our official values are going to be. But I think, not having a very kind of strict hierarchy, making sure line managers all are available to talk about personal and career-based issues. We have a very strong ethos with graduate engagement, and that comes from the teaching that I've done. So I lecture at 2 universities. So with Westminster, I've taught the last 2 years with with the interactive storytelling MA, and our project managers for the last year and a half have come from that course. So Leticia and Bayer, a massive kudos to doing that MA and wanting to study interactive storytelling in a new way. So I think teaching on that, the first year we taught Ceros, second year we taught ReadyMag, and I now work with Condé Nast College, which is their university across multiple. They've got some online courses, they've got BA courses, they've got MA courses. So we try and tie in digital communication into the teaching. And so off the back of that teaching, I really believe that if you find the right graduates that are really passionate about getting involved and learning, and you get the best out of a team, because there's so much energy there that can be tapped into. And I think working with bigger agencies and Ceros as a startup and Condé Nast as an entity, sometimes those bigger corporations can't nurture talent as much as a small corporation can. So I think about giving graduates ownership and sort of saying, okay, well, here's your year's plan, here's where we want you to get to. We find that a big important role in the training process. And I think even with senior designers, and both of you did a paid trial with us before we took you on. I don't want anyone to feel like they're being hard done by in the interview process either. And I think it really builds a strong asset, like a strong moral attachment to the company if we say, you know what, I don't expect you to do anything for free, I don't expect you to do a task to prove yourself, I would rather see you do something that's a real passion project for you, where you can show a subject matter of your choice and go, this is what I can do. And then for the designers, we do like 3 days on a landing page of the topic of their choice, and then 2 days production on one of these no-code tools to see what they can do. And you two both went through that trial process as well to see what skills you can add from a Webflow capability. So I think being very upfront with team members and being transparent and trying to match the needs of a team. And I know that with having a young team, it's important. We've introduced tension-free Tuesdays. We've introduced sessions to learn about illustration, free training. And even though everyone's freelance at the moment, we are trying to make sure the training is prominent. So I've probably talked way too much, but it's just about like the training and actually listening to the team and what they want to help shape where we go with it has just meant that we've had good results from a bonding point of view.
Right. And graduates, meaning that they just recently graduate and you take them in and train them, or
so it depends. We've taken some people straight out of uni and put them onto a training plan over 3 months onboarding, but also looking at a lot of our team have come out of uni, had like a year's experience, internships that they've not really learned much. I mean, from my personal experience, when I did 12 internships before I left uni, but all of them were for free. Some of them were awful. Some of them were like, go and get coffee. And if you're not using people for the skills that they've got, like they're not going to be driven to work for you. So I think making sure it's relevant experience and right exposure to clients and real briefs very quickly, you get a respect and a passion to work that we found has been key to our business.
So how did you initially build up that team? Because I'm guessing that you started from just yourself, or was it like a couple of people?
And Enzo will laugh at this, is that I put a note on the Kingston forum. So a lot of my team are from Kingston Uni because they've had the same training as me. But I put a note on the alumni board saying, looking for junior designers just to help me with some production, with some design. And me and Enzo sat in a pub you'll see this is a recurrent theme. Sat in a pub and talked about work that they wanted to do, and I just said, like, well, let's just try it, let's just see if we can work together. And quite quickly I was like, okay, well, let's get another designer in, and then Alex came on board. He's a friend. We met over skiing, and through lockdown there was problems with his last role, and I just said, well, look, you can help me out. And his background in data analysis and operations has been kind of really transformational, so he's helped work from the process side, whereas I focus more on the creative side. So I think we've grown very organically. Most freelancers have been recommended to us. Like you were recommended by Vim. We've done a couple of like paid ads on LinkedIn, but most of it's been organic. organic and word of mouth, which is how we've grown the client base as well. So it feels very real and very honest, I think, in the way we've grown the team at the moment.
Right. Cool. So I wanted to talk about your sales experience, because I'm on the Slack channel, and we had a little chat before we started recording, but I see whenever you close someone or a client, you put on the Slack channel, and there's always like a crazy story. Like the other day, I remember you said that, I don't know, you had a big gulp of wine or something while you closed the kind of. I don't really remember.
Okay,
so I wanted to
talked about being frugal, right?
So I wanted to talk about like how do you sell technically, but because I think you mentioned before you sell the modules, so I'm guessing like your unique selling point is speed, and we got everything ready, we can get it to you fast. So how do you sell?
A pub always helps, right? Even if I'm not in the pub, I was in the pub last week.
I see.
No, I think it's a fine balance. I think that in my sales approach, like, I'm not a trained salesperson, and I think working at Ceros, like being a creative strategist, you had to think about how to sell in the product more and how to find more opportunities for that client to use it. So I think most people saw Ceros as like, oh, it's a web design tool. But we found areas where you could do some of your employee engagement on it. You could do internal comms, you could do internal presentations, you could develop, marketing campaigns in that way. So there were different areas that you could use one tool to be more profitable. And I think that aspect of like listening to a client and saying, okay, well, what is it that you need? We have a range of products that might fit. And it's always important to kind of ask what the client actually is looking for. And it sounds really stupid, but having an honest conversation and being approachable and coming across probably too over the top at times. It's definitely something that has seemed to work in the past, but I think it's about being honest and approachable, that they feel at ease to let you in on the secrets of what they need from the business to then act on that. And I think we're working on some things at the moment in Webflow so that we've got examples at our fingertips to show inspiration. And I think a big part of how I lean into sales is having that creative focus, that I'll listen to the problems that they've got and then say, I've got an example for that. And then you dive into it. Like, you want to do something in like for a media kit, I've got this example.
It's like show and tell, right? Show not tell.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's much more about that visual storytelling, that even in the sales pitch, you need to have a decent presentation. You need to have examples that you can grab straight away. And I think from that point, it's all about the visual content that you're showing. And we're lucky enough to show some really big client names as well, which also ticks that you look more legit. If you're showing big client names, which is always key. And I think the next part where we're focusing our sales is we know the publishing go-to-market strategy inside out. We had a meeting yesterday where the client, after 25 minutes, went, "It's like you're in my head. You know what I need." And it's because we're very niche. Like we work and we work with their go-to-market strategy on their branded content. And we've recently taken the idea of having this kind of simple, medium, complex offering, which could be fixed price, it could be fixed lead time, that their sales team can go, oh, that's exactly what I want. And because you're skipping out that scoping phase of needing to check if you can do it, because we have those agreed timelines, it means that they can sell with, and they're selling on behalf of us, really. It means that they can hit the ground running much faster, which means we've had this kind of USP of getting the work in and repeat revenue at scale. And we've now tried to apply what we've done for publishing into agency world. So we're trying to work with agencies that have their own client. If we come to them with a fixed price, and this is what we're doing with Webflow and one of our agencies in London, is that if we come up with what a landing page is for a simple offering, it's going to take us like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but at least their sales team know that when they speak to their clients, they can go, Hannah's team's got that, and we know we're going to have it in 4 weeks. So we've managed to kind of use that tactic to great success. And I think it's a simple formula, but it seems to be working for now. I mean, we're still testing it on the Webflow stuff. We'll see if there's more steps we need to add in, but it's just trying to think, how to be as helpful to our clients as possible. And the speed thing is, we've got rigorous process behind it that means that we can turn things out on that timeline.
Cool. And you do all your sales yourself, or do you?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. So it's a lot of me at the minute. So if you're listening to this and you're a brilliant salesperson, please get in touch, because you'd be doing me a favor. But yeah, I do the sales myself at the moment. But again, as I mentioned, we haven't launched cold calling or outreach just yet. We've had a couple of people come to us through LinkedIn, but probably 80% of our work comes through technology partnerships, where they're recommending us to say, we don't want the creative services work. We've got overflow. Would you like to take this client on? Because they know that they're in safe hands. So I think, I won't say I'm a salesperson, because a lot of it is, inbound rather than outbound marketing and stuff. So, but yeah, I won't take all the credit. It's more that I'm getting hot leads.
Are we closing them? Still a skill.
But yeah, closing in the pub is always a good thing. Right?
Yeah. Cool. So I wanted to. I think we asked this to quite a lot of our guests that come on. But okay, I'm just going to get straight to the question. What would you do differently if you had to start over?
Oh God, I think we spent a lot of time not sure how to recruit properly. I think, as we mentioned before, like the strength of the team now and the last 2 quarters of last year, with the paid trials and setting expectations with the right job specs and knowing what we needed, was much easier than right at the beginning, having like rise and falls in sales and workflow. It was quite hard to make a decision if we needed someone full-time or part-time. So it was quite scary the first year to kind of really know what resource we needed. I would probably take a few more risks. I think we did it the other way around, that I tried to make sure we recruited first and then I made everyone busy afterwards. And on reading some books and collateral and stuff, to grow your business, you're supposed to sell first and then facilitate after. But being a bit more risk adverse, I also believe in the team culture and stuff as well. I don't want people to burn out. I've had it in previous roles where you're just left kind of working late and stuff. And at Vim, I know we've done it on certain clients. So I won't say that that doesn't exist.
No, we don't bring that up.
Yeah, we're trying to move over. But again, I think it's trying to set expectations that it's not the norm to do that. And so I think on what would I do again? I think, on some projects we've probably taken on more than we could, but I think it was a real turning point. It has been. And I think the projects that we've taken on that have been problematic, we had very plain sailing until that. And I think it's the struggles that we've overcome, and it sounds cliche, but it's made us stronger as a business to know how to tackle project management gaps, working with clients when you're not quite sure of the outcome. And I think WebGL, Lottie files, Webflow, integrating systems, iframes, I think it was a whole new world for a lot of us. And we took the risk. It's going to pay off, and I'm happy that we took the risk. But again, I think if going back to your question on if I had to do it again, I think it would just have a couple more consultant level people on some of those trickier turning points. Because I think sometimes being an owner on my own just meant that making some decisions felt a little bit alien, where normally someone was just going, oh, this is what we're doing. And for me to do it by myself, the whole team have been a massive support of that. Alex, as head of ops, has been a massive support of that. But I think sometimes it's still being an owner for the first time. It's just difficult to make some of those decisions with complete confidence. So it's that balance of risk, right? But I think it's paid off, but we would definitely know more things about WebGL going forward.
I mean, that definitely, because otherwise I would not have learned that. When you need to learn it to finish something, that's when you learn things properly.
Exactly. So I'm hoping
I think,
your question.
I think it did. It was just to be more like try to take on risk, I guess, because everybody's so scared, which is fair enough, right? Especially when you're starting out. But yeah, just to be fair, the projects that we did feel like it was a stress. Kind of learned quite a lot more in that project than I did in any other project, especially the limitations of Webflow, which I don't think most people would even reach that level yet. I told Shais, it was like, do you know Webflow had a 10,000 character limit on code? He was like, nope, I had no idea.
Yeah, I had
10,000
no
characters
idea.
sounds like it's a lot. And this sort of limitation you will never figure out until you're put to test it. Like I think that was a good project, honestly.
We've had similar things come up in the other platforms as well. That I think we worked on one for Red Bull called The Longest Wave, like middle of last year, and they wanted to push like how we looked at like a 3D globe and kind of spinning a globe and feeling like you were diving into an interactive map. And some of the problem solving we did with that it felt like a very flat approach, the first one we did, and the client was like, nah, it's still not immersive enough, we need to challenge it. So one of the solutions we came up for that was to use Google Earth, use a plugin to kind of spin that onto a world, made video clips that basically when you interacted with something, it played a different video to show the different rotations and zoom ins. And I think even innovations like that seem really, really small, but the end result looked so cool that we were like, oh my god. Cool is a buzzword that I said that we have a swear jar for saying things were cool or sick anymore. But it was super innovative, and I think that was just from a video execution. So I think sometimes we need to like pull back some projects and go, okay, well, we could do this with video, or we could do this with these, or we need to, maybe code some stuff. But I think USP wise, definitely need to be more in the no code stage the next year. For sure.
I think that brings up another question I had is, how do you deal with, especially when clients say, it doesn't look the way we want it. Sometimes you just feel like, how do you deal with that?
It's all good. I think that if you'd have spoken to any of my art directors or creative directors at previous agencies, I've always been quite a commercially savvy designer. So obviously I trained as a graphic designer, but I knew that there was like a client end goal on it, and I've always enjoyed the chat and the finding out about the client, working with them, collaborating. I'm not one of the sort of design types that wants to sit in a bedroom and just make really beautiful editorial. It's a very fine line with being able to push back but also incorporate their ideas. And that Longest Wave one that I just mentioned, like it was totally relevant what they said. Like the first version that we'd done did look flat, it did look static, and it didn't have the feel that they were after. So I think sometimes you have to embrace that and go, actually they're challenging me as a person to push my ideas further. Maybe it's going back to research, maybe it's looking at inspiration. And something we're doing with the team at the moment is we have a daily meeting. At the end of the meeting, everyone has the opportunity to show one inspiration a day. So we have just something to finish that team meeting that's inspiring to make us think differently. And there's been loads of like Webflow animations that we've seen on those morning meetings that we're like, oh, we really want to try that. We really want to wait for that project to come up. So I think it's you need to know when to push yourself as well, and clients will get that out of you. If a client's being tricky, you have to play bad cop sometimes. I joke with my team is that I want all my team to be good cop and I'll be bad cop. That's but it is a juggling act, and you have to be sensitive to what they want to get out of it. And because our clients have all got that they're selling to someone else, like we're dealing with the people in the middle, so they're paying for it at the end of the day. So there is a fine balance. We do push back when it's just visually awful. Like, so if it's ugly and they're choosing something that's not accessible, or just as I said, plain ugly, then we try and play back and say, oh, well, maybe we'll take on one idea, but this is where we want to push it. So I think there's always compromise in design, and I think you've got to not take it too serious.
It's not personal.
You're always going to have clients that are prone to have a different taste level to you. That's fine. But there are clients, and for us it's Red Bull, to really excel on innovation and creativity because they're open to it. But you're always going to have a balancing act with some clients, and it's whether it's one that makes you more money that you can balance that off with the creative output. yeah, it's kind of what have you got that client for, and what do they bring to your business? Because having a mix of all that does help.
Yeah. So Hannah, I wanted to ask you, when you were starting out your agency, what was your goal in mind? What was your end goal, and has that changed since you started?
Well, I'm currently doing business coaching to work out that. So I don't exactly know all the answers yet. And I think because a lot of the clients kind of flowed on from my relationship with Ceros, I was doing a lot of work that I was doing in my last role. It's a tricky one. We're still working on the goals. I didn't know how many people it was going to be. I had no idea we were going to get up to 36 by Christmas. And I think when I did the Christmas party and saw all of your faces on there, I was like, oh, there's so many people that are, working with us. And it does make me really proud. The team that we've built, the support that everyone gives each other. I mean, it's really small things that any other agency owners out there, we had a kind of moment before Christmas where we started a Slack channel just called Shout Outs. And like within 2 days, like everyone was on there being like, oh, shout out to Enzo for really helping me like learn something about this. Or, thanks Paige for helping me with this branding. Thanks, Charlie. We had multiple people like congratulating each other. And I think it's a culture that even stupidly simple things like that really encourage the team to help each other. And the team culture, even just within Q4 last year, went from like on the fence, people were working a little bit together, to everyone collaborating on another level. And I think it's just really nice to be working in that space to figure out what we want next. When do we get an office permanently? We have a Hubble space at the moment, which means we can go in 2 days a week, but again, like, do we need more time than that? Like, I think a lot of the junior members, the midweights, like need more time with each other to learn off each other. I don't want anyone to feel isolated in their bedroom. And I think it will be an interesting transition coming out of lockdown. Obviously, it's for a business owner, it's much cheaper to run a remote company, but is it best for the team? It's very different. So I think, the goal setting, maybe we do another one of these chats in 6 months and I'll know. But we definitely need to set the company values. So far we're playing catch up a little bit, that we've been facilitating the work rather than thinking about like top end goals and stuff. So I think it's definitely work in progress, but I just want a happy team and creative work on a number of different platforms. I think variety of work.
It's just the very last one. I always hear about this business coach and all of that. I just want to know, what do they do and what do you get out of it?
Well, I mean, like, Cam's probably going to watch this like on Wednesday when our next session is probably absolutely funny. But I think it just got to a point where I just needed, because I'm a single owner, I don't have a board of directors, haven't done this with a group of friends. I think that I just needed a space to just vent ideas and models, and just some of the things like I've not had the background in finance. Like, I think that was one of the struggles, that just getting the right advice on when to put people on payroll, what benefits to offer your team, how much should I be paying for an office, how much should I be paying designers, how much are pay rises every year. I think that there's some of the fundamental things that I just need advice on. And I think we've also joined up with a community called Agencynomics, which is an app we've started on some like mentor stuff. So I've reached out to people in my network in the last couple of weeks just to say, like, I actually know business owners in my position and I haven't tapped into that resource yet to ask some questions. So we're also hosting through Agencynomics, through the app. I just suggested, like, I got invited to a women's leadership group on there, and I thought it was like, do I want to do this women's only thing? Like, it's a bit cliche, but I realized some of them might be having some of the issues that I've had about, who do you get advice from? When do you admit that you need help? When do you need that there's lifestyle changes you need to make and stuff? So I think through doing that, I suggested a coffee morning in person, and the app organizers made it community wide. So now I'm hosting something for 25 people on the 1st of February. So it's just quite interesting. Like, I'm just trying to, in response to your question about what does business coaching do, I think it's just that support and having someone to ask where you don't feel like it's a stupid question. And like, I need to be the best leader that I can be. And I know that I haven't been a manager of 36, 40 people. So it's just about getting some of those key skills to say, okay, well, we've built a good team so far, but are some of those process things going to break apart if we go to 70 people, if we go to 100 people? Do we even want to get to that space? So I think it's just about looking at those goals that you mentioned before. Like, we know that being 2 years in, I probably should have had this probably 6 months a year ago or should have written it down on a scrap of paper in the pub, right? But yeah, I think business coaching is more about just another sense check of, having someone to turn to that needs to like answer my questions without being in the business and going, hang on, but you're my boss. Like, that's it.
Cool.
And I've got a question for you on that actually, for both of you. Who do you turn to for, apart from each other? For like, have you got like,
that was going to be my answer, to be honest.
Have you got mentors? Have you got people that you work with in similar situations? Like, who do you turn to for advice on growing stuff?
Either him or just myself.
Yeah.
You Google it.
Just Google it. But that's why I was very curious, because I've always hear people be like, oh, I have a business coach and they teach me how to do this. I'm like, okay, but like I don't like I personally haven't used it, so I don't know what's the value, but maybe something to consider. Just I told him, like, both of us just vent out ideas to each other, but both of us are at the same place. So it's just like just shouting at each other the same ideas.
I think it's just a difference of opinion, and it might. I've got some worksheets I can share with both of you. Let's see if it's
that'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, for myself, again, there's like I do kind of just vent out to Marlon. But I also have like it's not like he's not my mentor per se, because I didn't hire him or anything. But it's just like a person. He's from there's actually such a funny story how I met him. So I made this post on Facebook. I don't remember, but it was a marketing post, and he commented on it, and he was like trying to get a dig at me. He was like, I think I posted like some results that I got from another client on. I had like a screenshot of his Google Analytics, and I said, "Oh, I increased this person traffic by 200% or whatever." And then he messaged me. He commented saying, "Oh, this is fake. This is fake," stuff like that.
Wow.
And then I spoke to him. I told him, "Yeah, I'm only 19. This and that." He was like, "Oh, that's quite cool." And then we literally, like, ever since then, we have like a chat every week or so. And I found out later that he has a design agency, like a very big design agency in the UK. And he's been teaching me quite a few stuff. He taught me sales. And I just like tell him what I'm doing. He tells me how to improve and stuff. So it's quite funny how
your free business coach.
I wouldn't say he's my business coach, but I do. It's just about like talking to people.
Like a free business coach. I think that sounds good, to be honest. If you've got one for free, then.
It's always good to learn from people that they don't have to be experts, but even if they're one level above you, it's still good to learn from other people.
And I think it's great that you both started this. I think that one of the things that I read in the book over Christmas is just that starting your own personal brand and sharing your learnings. I've cringed away from doing any webinars from us this idea. I mean, I used to do it at Ceros, and I've done some joint webinars with Wirewax and stuff. But I think it's really important to kind of reach out to people. So what you're doing is great. I mean, what made you start doing this?
We were just bored. I always wanted to do it, but
you can say a better reason than that.
Actually, I always wanted to start some sort of like video, like some sort of podcast, but I can't bear to hear my own voice or even see my camera.
I to listen to this back.
Same. I never.
Yeah, I can't hear this back.
And then I always wanted to do it alone, but it's always very hard to start things alone. So I just reached out to him. I think on LinkedIn or Facebook. I have this idea. Do you want to join? And then he was like, yeah, sure. And then next week we just started. It was pretty scrappy. And we were just doing our webcams and all of that. And then we started as like sort of like sharing what we know. But then we quickly realized we kind of ran out of ideas on what to talk about. They were like, you know what, let's call in people who know a lot more, ask them questions. And those, I think for me, those are like the sort of mentors. It's just listening to other people completely out of different fields, just seeing what they think and just listening to what they've gone through and try to relate to
how
what
their mind works and stuff.
Yeah, and like especially in this, just getting people within the industry like you and like other people that we invited in the chat, we just learn a lot just listening to not just what they do but what they did, and that's the why we always go back to like the initial start of what did they do. And our last episode was a great reason, and because we always see Raymar from FinSuite, we always see like a jovial side to him, and then the moment he told us about his past, both our jaws just hit the ground. Like,
it was crazy.
Oh, we have never heard of this before. So like, stuff like that is like a lot, like very valuable.
Well, I think it's that base in people and learning from others, and people will always surprise you. So I think working with both of you it's really exciting. I think we can do a lot more. So I think I can probably introduce you to some more people to do this chat.
Definitely, man.
We're starting to run out of people as well. We have like a Notion list. It's like all the people I think are halfway through. So we have to ask people for more recommendations.
Yeah, cool. So I think a good way to end this off, because we're getting close to the 1 hour mark. What, Hannah, do you have any like future plans for HLabs or HanSpringett Ltd this year?
Not HanSpringett. So HLabs, the biggest thing. Oh, Shais is
disappeared.
He's obviously ended early. That's fine. But I'll answer
I know why. His battery probably died.
You see, Alex needs to be sending a recommendation, right? He's back.
Oh, okay. I thought your battery died or something.
In answer to your question, I think that the next steps for us is going through a rebrand, because I obviously put our website together in probably like less than 3 weeks. So you can see on the website we've got a moving H that changes, and it's because I couldn't decide on a logo. So it was just, I thought, we'll have a moving one, and then I don't have to like focus on just one. But I think we're trying to let the team run that branding. So I'm trying to remove myself from some of the ideation phases, because I really want it to be about the team's vision for what we want to achieve. I mean, it might be a bit brave to be doing that. I'm sure that I'll step in and be that floating art director being like, you need to change this at some point. The biggest thing for the brand is that we're going to relaunch as HLabs. We'll have a new website. It's going to be on Webflow. We're going to be offering some new products. And I think in regard to products, I mean, like that be, creative services that we can offer on each platform, whether that be interactive video with WireWax, whether that be interactive experiences like we've mentioned. But then, what the team have really stepped up a notch is, just by working with Red Bull on this project before Christmas, we've learned so much about like 3D and Spark AR that we've done some really cool filters. We want to push things from a social activation point. We've now got 3 illustrators on the team. We've taken on part-time animation. We've got Joe is brilliant as a part-time editorial specialist that we're now finally offering copywriting and digital writing expertise. And I think that has been a game changer just in the last 6 months, having those additional skill sets, that it's not just web design. So I think if anyone's got a online problem, we can probably find a way to help you.
Cool. Good. So
sales pitch, right? That's
I mean, nobody's stopping.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys, that was episode 15 with Hannah. We talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about how Hannah started, how she built a team, how she got all of these big clients under her belt. And hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure that you leave a like. If you have any comments about this, whatever topics we talked about, if you have any new topic ideas that you want us to talk about, then make sure you leave a comment, and make sure that you subscribe and turn on the bell notification button, because we want to hit 200 subscribers very soon. All right, guys, we will see you next week.
Take care.
Friday. Sorry, not this Friday. We'll see you this Friday.
This Friday. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.